Hi, people. I love you.
So where we like to start with the Road Dog Tales is at the beginning. So I know you're a native Oregonian. Where were you born?
Portland, Oregon. Emmanuel Hospital.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
And tell us about your parents.
They came from New York probably a year or two before I was born.
And their sister.
The whole family. So my whole family, they sound like New Yorkers. Everybody thinks I'm from New York.
Right.
Because the way I talk, I'm not. I'm from here. I'm from over here. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your home life now?
Home life now.
I mean, right now?
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm married to Vicky, who's sitting right there.
So did your dad play instruments?
My dad was a drummer in the Commodores in the 40s, the big band, the original big band Commodores in New York. Mm-hmm. They traveled all over, and In fact, he was playing drums on a live radio show. They interrupted the radio show to announce the outbreak of World War II. That was pretty, whoa. Gotta be kidding, yeah.
Did your mom play too?
No, she had nothing to do with music, no.
What did she do? Raise you?
Worked, yeah. Raise kids, worked, Sometimes she was home for months or years, and then sometimes she had a job, it was kind of both. Great family, though. Real close, tight-knit. Just like the Italian families in the movies. It is just like that. Oh, yeah.
So did your dad influence you to play music?
No, not at all. He had given it up to raise kids and da-da-da-da. But when I was little, 4, maybe 5, my parents would take me to their friend's house because I was too little to leave at home. And this guy had a guitar sitting in the corner. Not electric or anything, just a guitar. I thought it was the coolest thing I ever saw. I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was like this magic thing. Then some other people they knew that they would go visit, I'd go over, he had a guitar in the corner too. And I just, I couldn't believe it. Then when I was about 5 or 6, I saw an electric guitar on TV, and it was the coolest thing I ever saw, and it still is, yeah.
And so it was all over.
It was all over. Well, my mom came in the basement, I was down there, I found a cigar box. I nailed her, did something, I got a stick tied to it or some goddamn thing. Put a string on there, and I made my, she thought, oh, God. They started giving me little toy guitars, plastic little ukuleles, 99 cents at the toy store. And she came in the basement once, and I had one of those, and I taped a piece of string from it to a shoebox and drew a little speaker on there. That was my electric guitar and amplifier when I was probably about 6 or something. And when I was 8 years old, they finally gave in and got me a real guitar.
A real one?
Yeah.
What was it? Do you remember?
Yes, it was a Harmony archtop.
Oh, my gosh.
It was bigger than me. In fact, my friend said, I remember coming over when we were little kids, and I could barely see your head coming over the top of the guitar. Well, it's still that way. There'll be no laughter.
So at what point did you decide that you were going to go for it? That was
it just happened. It was just supposed to be.
Just kind of felt.
By the time I was in 7th, 8th grade, I'd been taking lessons since 3rd grade, playing in front of the 3rd grade class, and got together with my friends, and the Beatles had just come out, and the Northwest rock bands were there, so there was a lot of them in town, and my brother's 7 years older than me, so in the mid-50s, I was really into it. He brought home all the new Elvis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, rock and roll records. And when I was taking lessons, I had guys, the teachers were in their 30s and 40s, teaching me stuff from the 30s and 40s, and I did not want to know about that. Where's the rock and roll here? So I taught myself after that, after I learned to read, My Blue Heaven and... Yeah.
So would you say your brother was your greatest influence?
Not really. He was not a player. He just had 7 years older than me, so he would go get the records. Right. Had little 45s. He'd run in the house and put them on the record player as soon as you got them. I just couldn't believe how cool that was. Still,
So your influence, who would be that aha moment where you went, that's the way I want to play, or that's what I want to do?
It just happened when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But as far as blues, which is my identity, a friend of mine in high school kept telling me, you got to go see blues. It's the coolest thing. And my brother had a record. It was Delta Blues, the acoustic guitar on the back porch. Hated it. I was a rock and roll teenager.
Right.
Nice. Then a friend of mine talked me into go to the Crystal Ballroom in '67 to see B.B. King. Wait a minute, this is like a big band with horns and they're all wearing suits and a hot, loud electric guitar. I couldn't believe you could do that, and that's what did it.
So it was B.B.
Yeah. Well, that and I had Les Paul records when I was a kid. A lot of his stuff was just... He was a great jazz guitar player, but there was no money in that, so he played pop music and made a lot of money, but he invented the electric guitar as we know it.
Yeah.
He invented reverb, overdubbing, you know. And
So the first band?
first band was a rubber band, 8th grade through freshman year of high school.
School.
Then Moxie was a pretty big-time Northwest rock band. Got drafted into that when I was 17.
Wow.
And it was kind of, there's a film called Portland Mojo or something like that. And Paul Jones, he's the one that hired me into Moxie. And he says, somebody said, there's this kid, you got to hire him. He's still in school, but you got to hire him. And he's talking about me. But I was afraid to join because our guitar players kept dying, you know?
Right.
True. Yeah. Oh, I don't think I want that. Yeah.
So, and then the Brown Sugar.
Yes. Well, Paul was the drummer and manager in Moxie, 67.
Okay.
Early part of 68. Then he had to go to Vietnam. You know, we didn't go to Vietnam, but he had to join the service, no choice. So we just took his little brother, Lloyd Jones. He was our drummer before he learned to play guitar. And we formed a little thing. There was nothing going. So I had a chance to move to Hollywood. Not the Hollywood district, I mean the one in California.
Right.
Because there was a manager down there, and all the big Hollywood people were snubbing, oh, little Portland has their little music, and he was from here. So they put together a band of Portland guys, and I got the call. I was a kid. So I took the Greyhound bus and all, this shit. Went down there. And before you know it, we signed with United Artists. I was underage. I had to have a note from my mom, go before the judge in the same building that they show on Perry Mason, the courthouse,
Right.
Go before the judge with a note. And the attorney that went with me, he came and got me. It's the same guy that did all the negotiation with the Beatles for the movies and stuff. I thought, I have arrived,
Right.
And actually, we did an album, and it was on radio. My picture was in Rolling Stone when I was a teenager, Two of the guys in the band got busted for draft evasion. And record company policy in the 60s was over. And my picture was in Rolling Stone, the album came out, and it was over already. Came back, got back together with Lloyd Jones and the bass player from Moxie prior, and started Brown Sugar.
I remember a story about a motorcycle and you with your guitar on the
No,
back.
see, that's bullshit. There's like this mock-up picture of Jim Dunlop and I going to L.A. on a Vespa. We'd already been there, and we came back home because we hadn't signed yet, so we're starving. Wanted to visit our parents' refrigerators. Then we got the call, we're signing the deal, and he had a Vespa in his parents' garage. So we rode that back to L.A. 36 hours straight.
Oh,
And he kept falling asleep driving, and I'd wake him up across the match house and shit. Then when we got there, we pulled into the drummer's driveway, and a little curb on the edge. We finally fell over when we pulled in the driveway in Santa Monica. God. My dues are paid forever.
so of all the performances, I mean, you were on the road a long time. You did a lot
Decades and decades, yes.
and you traveled abroad and all over.
I think 14 or 15 different countries, yeah.
So, what were some of your most memorable performances?
Touring with B.B. King, off and on from 79 to 86. Friendliest guy in the world. Sitting in the motel rooms afterwards, telling stories about, being on the road, and he treated you just like you're one of the guys. No big deal. I mean, God, it was the coolest, yeah. And he handed me his guitar, the Lucille, and I thought, you gotta be fucking kidding. Is this great or what?
Right on.
Oh, did I swear? I'm sorry. Everybody's been waiting for that. They know me.
So how you write? You write songs?
I write tunes, not songs. I don't do lyrics.
Right.
They come out too rhymey, which is, sounds like kiddie songs. It's not going to work. So I just do tunes that are on my CDs.
And how do you get those creative?
I don't sit and think about, I'm going to write a song ever. It just pops in my head, and I'll go play it right away to make sure I remember it. And that's the only way it happens. I don't sit and think I'm going to come up with something. It never happened that way for me.
And what kind of style would you label yourself? If you had to put a label or put yourself in a box, what would that box be?
Well, in the 60s, I got blamed for not copying Hendrix and Clapton. Then people got pissed off because I don't do Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I guess it's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you take I've heard you over the years, and I hear a little Django in there, and I hear a little...
Yeah, well, everything I hear is influencing, you know. In the early 70s, I was listening to Albert King and Albert Collins.
Right.
Just listening to them, and it started sounding like that. So if I listen to it, I'll start sounding like it, so I kind of don't try to avoid, you know, listening to anything,
right.
You know, any one thing. But Django was I'm not into the gypsy jazz thing that he was famous for. But even Les Paul told me that he wanted to be like Django Reinhardt.
Yeah, that was a
big influence for everybody. Yeah.
I know you got a story in you.
Got a bunch.
I know you do. So I'm just going to cut you loose here. And
yeah, okay. We're just talking about B.B. King, God rest his soul. We always stayed at Holiday Inns on the tours. And he always roomed with Bebop, his road manager. And the layouts are always the same in the motel rooms. He got up one night to go to the bathroom, went in the bathroom door, his eyes were kind of closed, and closed the door and realized he was standing naked in the hallway. Well, he knocked on the door, Bebop came to the door and let him back in before, you know. Coming back from Sun Valley, Idaho, big resort there, we used to play there a lot. Spent the 70s and 80s up there all the time. We're coming back, middle of the night, probably 30, 40 miles before Pendleton. It was probably 3 in the morning or later. And we had a new Dodge van, which we were lucky. Radiator went dry. But at that time, you couldn't get Coors beer in Oregon because it wasn't pasteurized. Right, so DeLay would always smuggle a case back. So we're filling the radiator with Coors beer. And Paul's already pretty drunk from sitting in the back of the van, nothing else to do, you know. And he got the last beer, and he was pouring it in. He got the can halfway in the radiator and said, "I'll split it with you," and he drank the rest of it.
That was Paul.
Emotional stuff here. Toured Europe a lot. We played for this. It was like a USO show, sponsored by Department of Defense. And we're in Bosnia with the American soldiers. Bosnia, the Serbs were trying to do an ethnic cleansing. You know, aren't they nice? And so we're traveling with the American soldiers. In fact, all the NATO troops. But when you leave a base to go out to one of the camps to play for the soldiers, you go to the PX, which is a grocery store on the military base, and you stock up on bags of candy. And one of the soldiers said, "You'll see why." So we're traveling on these roads. They're so full of mortar shell holes bigger than cars from bombs and shit, you couldn't believe it. No houses left. All there were foundations. And when the kids, little kids, no parents or nothing, God knows if they were dead or what, they would come out and wave with the soldiers, and we would throw them bags of candy. And lots of them come running out and waving. They loved it. And we're throwing bags. I threw a bag out. I saw a kid pick it up. I'm watching him in the rearview mirror. He opens the bag, looks in it, and he handed all of his friends a piece of candy before he took one for himself. I thought that was like the coolest thing I ever saw.
Oh, that's cool.
Not bad, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, so...
That is a good one, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So, and you worked with Paul DeLay for a long time.
18 years.
18 years, yeah.
Well, Brown Sugar was Lloyd Jones on drums, Al Kuz's bass, and I was guitar, and we had a piano player, Mike McGill. And he became a Buddhist and didn't want to play blues, and so we heard about this harmonica player. He was a kid. He was 18, I think. I was the old guy. I was 20. Lloyd was 19. And so we heard about this kid, and he played at this jam session. It used to be it's called the Neighborhood House. It was an old church building across the street from Laird Hill Park down by Corbett. Went and saw him, and he's amazing. He didn't sing. He didn't know how. So we took him in the basement, and we had rehearsal/training. Lloyd did all the singing. And he didn't know where to come in on a song or where to go. We taught him all that. Then he learned how to sing. So we rehearsed all the time, day and night. And we went and got all the old blues records. A lot of bands that were rock bands in the 80s decided we have to be blues bands, which is similar in structure. They didn't learn blues. That's why it's now blues rock. But we got the old records. The Music Millennium used to be called the Ides of March in the late 60s, early 70s. And it was a record store, and they had a section of old records. So we got all the records by, Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Willie Dixon, the real guys. And we learned off that and learned and practiced so it sounded like that. Then DeLay got to sing more and more and more, and then Lloyd wanted to go on his own because he learned to play guitar. We didn't need two. And so We just called it the Paul DeLay Band because there's this 300-pound guy standing out in front. Made sense. Yeah.
Right.
Kept going. Yeah. That's how that came about. So Brown Sugar lasted 69 to 77. And I stayed with DeLay till 86 or 7, I think.
And
I wanted to get away from the white marching powder, and the whole band was into it. So I had to get away from it, which is getting away from, no offense, they've all stopped. Everybody grew up, but I just had to get the hell away from it, which is good. Worked out well. Went on my own finally. Got the confidence to run a band, which I hate. I just want to be in somebody else's band. Hire me.
I get that. And then when did you get hooked up with Ed Newman?
Known him since the 70s. Never was in a band with him because he was a lounge guy. He played at the same place 6 nights a week for years on end. But I knew him. Then Dover Weinberg was our keyboard player, and he wanted to go off with Duffy, which was cool. And Dover's been in and out of the band since '78. So he said Ed Newman wants a gig, and I thought, hell, I don't have to do anything. I already got a new keyboard player. There we go. And that was 16 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then Scotty White and the people that you're...
Scott's been with us. We had a bass player that Ed couldn't stand him, and he didn't play real well. Names left out. And so Ed called and said, Scott White wants the gig, and I thought, you got to be kidding. He sings great. He's a great bass player. So that's been 4 or 5 years ago. Johnny Moore's been with us 7 or 8 years now. I hustled him to join the band way back when, but he was a full-time shipyard welder and couldn't go full-time. Then after he retired, he came with us. Yeah.
And when did you start recording? When was your first recording?
The first recording was a radio jingle for Jansen Beach Amusement Park, back when they had the roller coaster, when I was 15 years old. Yeah.
And then your first album?
60... First full album was 1969, was Wrinkle in Los Angeles.
With which?
Wrinkle.
Winkle. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Wrinkle, or W-R-I-N-K-L-E.
And what was the title on that one?
There was a couple of them. One was called Beautiful Lady. I still have copies of that. It was on radio.
Cool.
And back east. Mm-hmm. Test stuff, and it went real well, yeah. That was the band of all the Portland guys that went to L.A., yeah.
And then the Candlelight.
The Candlelight.
What was that? It was just a compilation of a bunch of people for the Candlelight. That was a record.
Hot Night at the Candlelight. Well, that was my full-time band when Steve Bradley and Lily were both in it at the same time. Yeah.
And talk about Steve too. You guys did a.
We go back to 1966.
Steve Bradley.
And so next year we'll have been playing. We still play together all the time. Record together still, not lately, but next year we'll be celebrating playing together for 50 years. Oh, God. He looked at me the other day and he said, 50 years? I said, think about it. Oh, God. Yeah, 66. Yeah.
Can you imagine these guys then? I mean, they're already hyperactive.
Yeah, he's nuts too. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you guys, the album for Christopher. No.
So, oh yeah, Blues for Christopher. I didn't actually have a name for it. My record company guy at the time wanted to use that title because it was right after my kid passed away. Yeah, everybody knows about that already. So that was why we called it that.
Some people don't.
Oh, I had a little boy, and so I was 44, and I figured I better do it if I'm gonna. So had a kid there, and he was born sick. I figured he'd live a couple of months. He made it to 22 months. And he caught pneumonia. They were going to do a surgery on him that they found in Australia and New Zealand that worked. Open his airway because it was too small and too tight. But you have to wait to be 2 years old for it to work. And at 22 months he caught pneumonia. And over that. Okay, yeah.
So you dedicated an album there.
Yes. There's a song on it called "Song for Christopher." Yes.
And then also you did a short film, The Losers Club.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. How that
It's
came about.
primarily the history of Steve Bradley and I.
Right.
Yeah.
50 years.
And Pierre Olet, who was our guitar idol when we were teenagers, he was in the big Northwest rock bands. He's now a film producer and he's got 5 or 6 books that are bestsellers and stuff. So he put that together. And and in the movie, we go back to places we hung out when we were, teenagers. Pretty fun movie to do, actually. Yeah.
You can see that on YouTube now. It's called The Losers Club, and if you Google it for Jim Mesi, it's a great film. And also, tell us how you came up with The Losers Club.
It's just a bunch of guitar players and other musicians, friends of mine. We'd get together for, I used to drink, and we get together for drinks and tell road stories, and every Tuesday night. And I just thought, well, what a bunch of... No, one year on Thanksgiving, it was on Thursdays originally, in the place we were playing back then.
Parchment, right?
Yes, Parchment Farm. They were going to close for Thanksgiving. And me and a couple of my friends said, you can't close, we have nowhere else to go, And so when everybody showed up on Thanksgiving to have that, I said, we're all a bunch of fucking losers, so that's how the Loser Club came about, yeah. There were no actual losers, yeah.
You want to tell us another story?
Let me think. Yeah. A good one. Most people already know this. Les Paul being my favorite guitarist ever. Invented the solid body, reverb, overdubbing, echo, a million things. In 2007, I'd never seen him because after the 50s he never traveled. Played at one place 2 nights a week in New York forever. So I made the trip 3,500 miles to go see him. He was 92, I figured. I'd better see him now. So Brian Friedland and I flew there and had to hang out in New York City. I've been all over the world, but I never hung out in New York City, so that was pretty cool. Went to see Les. Somebody said something about me, and so we ended up backstage before the gig talking to him, and like B.B. King, he treated us like, one of the guys. And then during the second set, he called me up to play. I couldn't believe it. I just went to see him. This is God, okay, and... Right. I didn't bring a guitar, so I used his extra Les Paul. Oh, man. So I tell it this way. I played Les Paul's Les Paul with Les Paul on Broadway. There's a highlight for you. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
There's pictures of it on everything, yeah.
So what's your favorite word?
I'm thinking the letter F.
What's your most unfavorite
favorite word? I really, it depends on the era. In the 70s, everybody could not start a sentence without basically, so that was my worst fear then. And nowadays, everything is not a problem, it's an issue. Fuck that, a magazine is an issue. Problem's a problem, get over it.
So, what's your least favorite word?
I don't know. Like I said, it depends on the era. It was basically now solutions.
Awesome, right?
You see a truck go by, it doesn't say carpet cleaners, it's carpet solutions.
What's your favorite sound?
Favorite sound? There's too many. I couldn't name one. Well, electric guitar, good God, yeah.
Okay. That's a given.
Well, electric guitar without a bunch of pedals and effects.
Just straight.
The sound of a guitar, yes.
Gotcha. So what's your least favorite sound?
Banjo. Years ago, I switched health insurance companies. So I had to see a new doctor. You have to fill out the form. At the bottom, you list allergies. I actually wrote in banjos. Literally.
So if you could spend a day with anyone living or not living, who would you want to spend the day with?
Les Paul again. Yes.
Cool. Do you have a favorite song that just resonates with who you are as a person? Like,
it doesn't resonate with me as a person, but the old 1958, 59 version of Sleepwalk, I love that. I put it on 3 albums, different versions, and an instrumental that came out in 61 called Apache. Those just work for me.
Your version.
I'm a blues guy, but those are just, I love those things. Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Sí, bueno, aquí. Thank you.